Harrison Price for Thursday, January 16th, 2025, coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee, here at the historic Wall Center. In this program, a presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets, so whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Sakaris alongside Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson, hitting switches, conducting things. We got a big program planned for you as the Vancouver Canucks return home to face the LA Kings, and this is a direct competitor in the Western Conference playoff chase.
Although as time goes on, less and less direct.
Yeah, looking at it today, whew, they got some work to do.
Yeah, to make this direct. Yes.
So we'll talk about the game. We heard from JT Miller. We've heard from Philip Hronek. We've heard from Rick Tocchet down at Rogers Arena this morning. And, of course, we will also point forward on a number of topics, including some of their players and their coach. It brings us to the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question for today. Do you think Rick Tocchet will be back next season? Yes or no? You can vote at the Sakaris and Price X and YouTube channels. Blake Price.
I probably would have been like a 60-40 yes to no very recently. And I think it might be tipping over now to 49-51 yes to no. And I'm starting to think that, yeah, he may not end up coming back. And again, there's a bunch of different avenues to make that happen. His contract is done at the end of this year. Needs to get the option triggered, and then he has to agree to that option. So lots has to happen there. You have to measure his satisfaction level with where he's taken this team. You have to look at, and it will have been 2.5 years. Like, that's a pretty decent sample size if you're a coach. He's not just an interim that, needs more information before he makes a decision on what he's going to do in the future. Be 2.5 seasons in charge of the Vancouver Canucks. Is he satisfied that he can see the light at the end of the tunnel? And I would say, unless there's a profound change, and you can define change in any way you want, wins and loss column, personnel, I don't know that he's going to be that optimistic and say that he sees that light. There's some frustration there. You can read it.
I think there's almost zero chance that Patrick Allvin fires Rick Tocchet.
What, are you talking mid-season?
This season.
In the middle of the games. I agree with you there.
Yes.
I would think, yeah.
I think there's almost zero chance that Patrick Allvin doesn't want Rick Tocchet back next season. Now, Jim Rutherford and Francesco Aquilini are there, and they get a say in this matter. But GM, coach, I believe, are aligned. I could see the Vancouver Canucks, with tepid enthusiasm for Tocchet going forward, offering a lowball contract extension that Tocchet rejects, that they may well know he will reject. I could see Tocchet saying, I'm done with this shit, and going back to television or back to a life where he doesn't have to deal with all this.
Mm-hmm.
I voted yes. I do wonder whether the resolution, if there is a resolution coming to the JT Miller, Elias Pettersson saga, plays into this. Because I think Elias is difficult to coach. I think Tocchet has been quite frustrated with his inability to reach Elias Pettersson. And he's not the first coach who hasn't been able to reach Elias. I think if they do trade Miller and retain Elias, I think that probably decreases the chances of Tocchet being back.
And according to the reporting, that's the preferred avenue for the Canucks.
I think if Elias is traded, I think that probably increases the chances of Tocchet wanting to be back. And, needless to say, whether that's an in-season matter or whether that's a summer matter could come into play here as well, right? Because there's a world where you don't have resolution on that, and yet you've already dealt with the coach and secured his future.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah, so the timing of everything, I think, is going to be quite interesting.
I would guess that Rick Tocchet wants to know what the future is of those two players before he makes his decision.
I would think that, Blake. I would agree.
Whether you're correct in the swing or not,
right.
I think he just wants to know.
But here's the, just let me lay out the scenario for you. You're working towards a deal on Elias. You don't get it done. The trade protection kicks in, and you go back to a suitor on Miller. So, and honestly, the more I see this team perform without any kind of fire or energy or emotion or passion or care or any of that, the more I wonder whether we're headed towards an in-season resolution to all of this.
Do you think the trade protection really matters for Elias Pettersson? I mean,
yeah, I do.
Miller's got it because you think he's a nester and doesn't want to leave.
I think there would part of that. I also think there would be a lot of markets that Elias probably doesn't fancy. Plus, agents these days, and Elias has the biggest ones on the block, and Pat Brisson and JP. As soon as you have no move clause, the agent goes to the player and says, "Okay, what markets would you accept to trade to?" And the player says, "I'd love to play in LA, love to play in New York, South Florida," and it becomes a limited number of markets. And the agent goes to the team and says, "Well, here are the markets that my guy will accept to trade to," and it's like 3 or 4.
Yep.
That's how it works. That's how the mechanics of this work.
Very limited, for sure.
Yeah.
But
because teams don't want to go through the business of getting somewhere down the road with a trade partner only to take that to the agent and player and say, "No, we're not going to Carolina. We're not going to Pittsburgh."
I don't think we'll get to that point anyway.
But I think Tocchet will be back next season. And I also think he deserves to be back next season. This has not been a great year on the bench. Last year was a tremendous year on the bench. More often than not, when you get that sort of juxtaposition, that sort of wide swath between the two coaching jobs we have seen last year and this, more often than not, you get the deciding round, right? The rubber match.
And that's fair. Does he deserve, just in terms of workplace stability, does he deserve the other year? Yeah, for sure.
Oh, for sure he does.
But in this particular occupation, age of message, ability to change message,
also
all matters. And, a manager has to look at that and say, I think the guys are, and I'm not saying we're at that point yet, but this is generically speaking,
yes.
The message is not sinking in anymore. We've got to make a change.
You're right.
Deserves got nothing to do with it.
Yep. Our friends at Surrey Mitsubishi have a special program exclusively for the Sick Harrison Price audience. If you've been turned down for financing at other dealerships, Surrey Mitsubishi is committed to get you approved through their in-house finance program. Jessica from Surrey Mitsubishi will assist in getting you approved on a new Mitsubishi. Bad credit, negative equity on your current car. Jessica will apply the special program for you. Do everything possible to make sure you are approved. Email Jessica at surreymitsubishi.com. Make sure you mention Sick Harrison Price to get in on this program. Some conditions do apply. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue. Let's get to our top story.
Before that,
I wanted to get to this tweet as well.
Well, let's first get to a super chat. Cole with a super, and it's a big super chat.
Oh,
thank you very much, Cole. Canucks fan from Newfoundland. I watch every pod. Appreciate you guys for the in-depth updates and thoughts. The drama and mediocrity makes staying up until 11 p.m. puck drop slightly less appealing. LOL. Hope some change is made soon. Thank you very much, Cole.
You have to be committed to be a Canucks fan on the rock.
In this kind of a season, yes. When they're winning, you don't mind being sleepless.
You love all these matinees if you're on the rock.
Right. You got lots of those coming up.
Canucks fan.
When is it? March? Is March all the matinees, I think? Cole's going to be a very happy man in March.
Just before we move on from the poll, and incidentally, folks, our super chats are open at all times, as we do the opening block of the show, and partial proceeds to the BC Mental Health Foundation. So thank you to Cole for helping support.
6 straight afternoon starts.
Yeah,
in the second half of March.
So bizarre. This schedule. I mean, we need Jeff or somebody to go and do the calculus. Is this got to be the most afternoon heavy?
The latest game for Cole in Newfoundland for that 2-week period will be 8:30 p.m. So congratulations, Cole.
You're doing pretty well. So I tweeted that I thought Tocchet would be back, and then Wayne replied to me at Canucks House. Now, what if Mike Sullivan becomes available? That is a most interesting question, Wayne, because we've heard some sprinkling in of Sullivan as Rutherford and Alvin have messaged over the years. I've heard more about Tocchet, needless to say, but Sullivan won 2 cups there, consecutive cups there. Tocchet, to some degree, is of the Sullivan coaching tree, albeit he did work with others and have head coaching jobs prior to Mike Sullivan.
Well, we didn't cover 2 other avenues, so it's important to bring up both of these. The one you just mentioned, what if somebody really intriguing like Sullivan becomes available? And then subsequently, we didn't cover what if there's an opening that Rick Tocchet sees and goes, oh, I'd much rather be there.
Why don't we trade coaches, Sullivan for Tocchet?
Old school.
No, I think it is a very small pool of coaches that Alvin and Rutherford will look at.
Yeah.
It may just be Mike Sullivan. It may be nobody. And say, he's better than what we got. Let's go get him.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
You occasionally see that in the National Hockey League, but rarely. We saw it this year, right, where St. Louis moved on their first-year coach because Montgomery became available.
Right. And it seems to have paid dividends.
Montreal did so for Claude Julien back in the day, if I'm not mistaken, after his tenure in Boston. But yes, and in terms of somebody coveting Tocchet, I suppose so. I would think, though, that the calculation for Rick is not necessarily another market and rather broadcasting or a life without coaching. Could be wrong there. But I think both of those scenarios are unlikely. Like, possibility, sure, but unlikely. Top story by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, and Foolish Winery. Big game in the standings versus the LA Kings. We're in the second half of the season now, folks. Standings and matchups with direct competitors, they take on a different import at this stage. So big game in the standings at home tonight against the LA Kings, plus vengeance for Boeser on Tanner Jeannot, who, of course, hit Boeser in the head, dirty hit, got suspended, caused Brock a concussion, and to miss some games during that 4-2 LA Kings win on November 7th. The Canucks morning skate, and it was fully attended. This was not an optional. Had Carson Soucy and Vincent Desharnais on the third pair. Tocchet saying that Noah Juulsen is nicked in a game-time decision, but I think it's fair to conclude that Vincent Desharnais is going to skate tonight. And I do wonder if Vincent Desharnais is going to skate tonight with the express purpose or understanding that Mr. Jeannot has to answer for his misdeeds.
It's possible. Myers Forbert, by the way, if people are trying to convert what that second pairing would look like. Yeah. I mean, there's Myers can drop the gloves, Forbert can drop the gloves, Soucy can drop the gloves as well. All the trees are capable of dropping gloves. And Juulsen is game time decision, and he can drop the glove if he's necked. I mean, what are the chances he fights? Probably low. But they've got several candidates. I don't know that necessarily the tallest one has to be the only one, but it's possible.
Can I throw another name out there?
Yes.
What about JT Miller?
Ooh. If we suspect injury, and more on that in a second, if we suspect injury, no, I think that's down the priority list.
we've seen JT fight before, fought on opening night.
For sure.
Of course, after one of his transgressions, or perceived as such by the Calgary Flames.
Under other circumstances.
And he fought a monster in Anthony Mantha, right? Like, he, I know Janot's a tough customer, but JT doesn't lack on the courage in some of these brouhahas.
And in terms of like just kind of reclaiming
that's
credit
it.
in the room and all that.
Well, in terms of lighting a fire and getting some emotion, both in his own game and in the team's game.
But if we're led to believe he has a neck or shoulder injury, that is the last thing you want to be doing.
Tocchet says he is not injured.
It's what he said today.
JT Miller concurred. Here's Coach.
No, he's not hurt. I think it's just the way we're made up right now. I think for us to get back into it, and like I said, we're playing more four lines, and I think it's helped our team adjust. Not giving the other team as many shots, trying to stay in the game. But yeah, he wants to play better. He knows it.
So 4 lines is a defensive tactic. Reduce the shots, stay in the game. Speaking of those 4 lines, some changes there as well. Pettersson with DeBrusk and Lekramaki. Miller between, PDG and Boeser. And I almost interpret this as, God, those first 8 games at the start of last season and how we were fawning over that line and the makeup of that line. Because PDG was doing all the spade work, and then you had the JT creating, then you had Brock finishing. Or sometimes JT finished too. I almost feel like that is, okay, JT, let's run home to mama here, give you some comfort food on each wing, see what you got. Suter between Heinen and Garland, Bluger between Höglander and Sherwood.
I've got zero problem with the lineup.
I got zero problem with that too.
With what they have right now, I mean, I might be tempted. I'll say this: I might be tempted to give Höglander with Suter and Garland just to see if any in the goal drought does something to Höglander. I would guess that if a couple of minutes in, Höglander looks like he has jump and Heinen just looks like Heinen, you might see that.
Yep, I would agree.
Because based on that Höglander goal, which was, we understand, in the most garbage of garbage time, that was pretty nice.
More on that goal in our Bet365 bets of the day.
Okay.
Well, okay, so here's JT. He was requested, and he was requested with the understanding nobody was going to ask him to detail an injury. Let's take a listen.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably to play a little better. I don't know what I would say.
You've been over your time here. There's been a lot of success on the ice. You've been praised at times. You've been criticized, but you've always kind of been the emotional heartbeat of this team. That emotional side we've seen less of just from the outside. Do you see it that way? Like, do you feel that part might be a little bit missing, or how do you see where you're at?
I don't know. It's probably for you guys to interpret, right? I'm not really conscious of it.
I did a poor job setting that clip up. He was asked about his reduced minutes. That was the first set of I don't knows. Last year, you may remember, JT loved talking to the media. He loved holding court. He was regaling and all of it. It hasn't been as fun this year for JT, you can tell.
I mean, I didn't like the answer till the very end, where he finally said, "It's not something conscious for me." If he just left it as I don't know, I would have been a little frustrated with that answer. But then when he says it's not something conscious, okay, he answered the question. It's not something
I'm not
that
sure
he
I
consciously
believe it.
feels.
I'm not sure I believe it.
You can
he's
determine
not conscious of the emotional lag with him this year, especially of late.
But just I don't know it. Like,
well,
that's an off ramp, but he eventually got there.
But it's also on us sometimes too. Like, God bless Farhan, I adore him. But JT, are you playing with the same emotion this year that you were playing with last year? Force him to answer the question, yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, I don't know, okay. Do you notice any emotional dip in your level out there? Like, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Thatcher Demko starts. Saw that one coming.
Yeah.
After Lankinen shits the bed in Winnipeg. And also, okay, we're 8 games in. At what point do we start holding Thatcher Demko's feet to the fire and expect the Thatcher Demko level of years past? Or are you there yet? Is it fair to ask that now? Does he need a couple more starts, a lot more starts before you start asking, okay, Thatcher, can you get back to being the Thatcher Demko of old? It's 8 games this year so far from Demko. 883 save, 317 goals against. 2 wins, gotten points in 5 of the 8. You want to give him 10? 2 more, and then it's...
Before a full report card?
Well, no, before... for the most part, I haven't noticed a lot of criticism of Thatcher Demko.
Right.
And understandably so. The context here is the guy missed months and months and months, had a very weird injury that has never been diagnosed in a hockey player, let alone a goaltender, has had to adapt. We heard what Steve Alekit said about his stance being narrower and he's having to compensate. And so, yeah, he is not being held to a Vezina level standard here in the early going. At what point do you have enough of a sample size, enough games under his belt, where you have to ask yourself, okay, is Thatcher Demko going to be able to get back to that level? Because needless to say, that has pretty significant consequences for the Vancouver Canucks this year and beyond.
I in my mind's eye,
it also has consequences for the Kevin Lankinen contract matter.
There's that too. In my mind's eye, I had sort of envisioned, okay, you can expect old Demko after the Four Nations. Before then, I think it's reasonable to expect minimum average goaltending, though. Like for him to get his save percentage up to .905, I think that's reasonable. I don't think you should be expecting him to challenge .928 of Connor Hellebuck this season. But, and nor do I think that the floor should be lowered. I think the floor should only get so low for a player like that it's okay if you're not consistently genius like he normally is. But
it's 12 games before the Four Nations.
I don't want to see a ton of stinkers. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to see some consistently good play rather than consistently excellent play.
It's 12 games before the Four Nations. They have 12 games remaining.
Yeah.
So let's say he gets 6 of those. Maybe more. But let's say he gets 6 of those.
So it would be like a 15-game sample.
Yeah, so then you're at a 14-game sample. Yeah. Okay, I can abide that. Frankly, I want it a little sooner.
And then,
I would say once he gets 10 games in, okay, gotta get going here at some point.
If I'm the Canucks, I give you have to talk to the player about it because you don't want to sewer the player. But I would talk with Thatcher Demko, and unless he was jumping up and down, going, "I gotta be at Four Nations," I try to convince the player not to go to Four Nations.
I would try and convince Demko and Miller,
yeah,
not to go to Four Nations.
Yeah.
Frankly, and I understand the league and USA Hockey and the players themselves may not love this, but for me, if any of these guys are nicked, I don't want you going.
And there's such a great thing as a great off-ramp for the team to use. The big dangling carrot is the Olympics next year. You're going to make the Olympic team. You want to put yourself in position to make the Olympic team.
In JT and Thatcher's case, given the depth of forward and goaltender the U.S. has, I don't know, Blake. And I think pulling out of the Four Nations, if USA Hockey operates anything like Hockey Canada, probably shows that's a minefield.
JT maybe because he doesn't have a documented injury right now. I think Thatcher Demko's got the get out of jail free card.
Yeah, but right now Thatcher Demko is the third goaltender on that U.S.
Right, he's probably not going to play anyway, but which is sort of all the more reason, guys. If I'm not going to play anyway, I'm coming back from injury. Why don't I step aside? Like to me, Thatcher Demko's got the get out of jail free card. Without a documented injury right now, and the coach
hold on. We forgot. He didn't make the team. They took Swayman. Remember they had to name this fucking team back in December? So Demko's not on Four Nations. He could still be an Olympic candidate, but let's just make things
Really?
clear.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Brain
they took
fart there.
Swayman. They took Swayman. My bad. No, I led you down that garden path. Obviously, a healthy Thatcher Demko is a candidate to be on Team USA's Olympic team. But because they had to name these teams so early, and that's the other thing. I was thinking about that yesterday because Chris Johnston did an item on TSN about all these Canadian snubs who have been awesome since the team was named. Why did they have to name these teams in December? Like, I understand you want faces to the teams and you want the ability to market and promote, but if I'm Hockey Canada, like, there are so many close, Team USA as well, there are so many close calls, and you want me to make that call like nearly 2 months before the start? That's an eternity in the NHL.
Yeah, I think Canadian fans are sensitive to that because of the lack of goaltending period, and you'd like to just get the one guy that's in form, and neither one of those two guys are going. But
the Logan Thompson omission right now looks whoa. Okay, we heard from JT. Vancouver 5 points back of the Kings, who have 2 games in hand. Like, it could work. As we sit here right now, it could work like a 9-point gap between the Canucks and the Kings right now. Depending on what Los Angeles, of course, does with those games in hand. Canucks have this one against LA, having already lost the game in November, and they only play the Kings 3 times this year. So there's only one more head-to-head matchup with LA, and that comes on February 26th. The Kings currently holding down the 3rd position in the Pacific Division, and if the playoffs were to start right now, they'd go to Edmonton again. That's their dragon. With Vegas, of course, leading the Pacific Division, but it's only a 2-point gap there to Edmonton, who have won 3 in a row, so a lot of fluidity could still happen at the top of the standings. And then as we look at this wild card and examine that, the Canucks 1 point back of Calgary, all square on games there. They are 2 points ahead of St. Louis. St. Louis has played 2 additional games. So if you want to apply the same math that Vancouver will win their games in hand, it works like a 6-point gap to St. Louis right now. Calgary is in St. Louis tonight again, having played there Tuesday.
Cheer on the Blues,
and
regulation.
You are free to cheer on the Blues in regulation. You, of course, want to cheer against an overtime game.
Yeah.
But you are free to cheer on the Blues for a 2-point win. That would be more beneficial to the Canucks as these 2 other direct competitors go head-to-head in the NHL.
I know it
on
doesn't.
the NHL sked. Go.
I know it doesn't feel near in any way, shape, or form, but the Canucks need to find a way to get a winning streak to make themselves feel better. Like playing this mid-lane hockey is not getting them any traction. In a lot of cases, it might be losing them ground because other mid-lane teams string together, like the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Columbus Blue Jackets, 5 straight wins. Now, their 5 straight wins have only got them level with the Canucks at 48 points, wrong conference, but you know what I mean, just in terms of points. But middling teams go on. 5 games. The team right below them, the Senators, have won 3 straight and are going on a run as well. Like, the minute the Canucks do that, there's going to be breathing room, and they're going to feel a whole lot better about their life. But the inability of this team, never mind to string together 4 straight wins, to go back-to-back victories even. Like, there's just no traction here. So they can win tonight. They could very well. The bigger curiosity is not can they win tonight, is can they win tonight and win the next one?
Yeah. And then there's Colorado holding down the top wildcard spot, who are 7 better than Vancouver right now. Now, they've played 2 additional games. But it could very well be the case coming down the stretch where getting 3rd place in the Pacific becomes more achievable than getting the first wild card. right?
Maybe. I mean, the Avs currently are still much lower points percentage at 611 versus 646 of the Kings.
Mm-hmm.
But could I envision the Avalanche getting hot and the Kings sinking a bit? Yes,
Yeah.
that could happen.
So something to keep an eye on as well. What are our friends at Yellow Dog up to this week?
Well, they've loved to keep you guys hydrated, if you will, via the boxes. Yellow Dog, the Jeff O'Neill show from the legendary Sea Fox, teaming up to give you a great box. Nay, a fantastic box. It's Mr. Fox's fantastic box. It's the new mix pack, the brand new collection of beer, and some old favorites. They got the Jingle Juice Tangerine Blonde, the Fa La 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 Lager, still some of those kicking around, and a whole lot more. So join the festivities, make them elongated just a little bit longer, and get a Mr. Fox fantastic box.
It's the world famous Sea Fox, not the legendary.
Sorry, is that trademarked?
I believe so.
Oh.
And after we attended the launch of these beers, we made great friends with Jeff O'Neill and his team.
I was not there.
Okay, but I was.
Okay.
Jared was from sales.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. We had a great day that day, actually.
Sounds like fun. I don't think I got an invitation.
Well, we were, in the afternoon, we were over at AppCom.
Oh, is this... and then you went over to Granville, right?
And that is typically a pretty boozy event.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we went over to Goodco on Granville and connected with Jeff and...
Gotcha.
One of our former... he wasn't an intern per se. He came in and he shadowed for Phil Figgs.
Oh,
He's
Phil
the
Figgs,
new producer there. So.
Yeah, he works in the Black Tower, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he did. Now we switch off.
That's still a Black Tower.
Okay. Can there be a resurgence in this Canucks season? What can possibly get this team going and playing with fire and playing with purpose this year? Well, Philip Roenick still believes in the group. He met the media today, which is kind of news in and of itself. He was asked about coming back early. He said, "Did I come back early?" And they said, "Well, your timeline was 8 weeks. You're inside of that." He went, "Oh, okay." And then asked about this team and said, quote, "I believe in this group, and I'm sure all these guys believe in this group. So we're not panicking here. It's more on you guys." I certainly don't think we're panicking, but I do think we're examining the body of work over 43 games and saying, not good enough, not playing to potential, underachieving, and not aspiring a lot of confidence going forward. If you want to interpret that as panicking, sure, fine. I mean, you're still right there in the thick of it, lest there be no doubt.
But
there's just been so few nights over these 43 where you've looked at the Vancouver Canucks and went, that's a contending team.
Well, if you had told them after...
no doubt playoff team.
If you had told them to a man on opening night, guys, after 43 games, do you think you'll be out of the playoffs? Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a single one of them that would have guessed that, yeah, they might have a little bit of a struggle to stay in the playoff race for the duration of the year. There's no way. So no one's suggesting panic in the least. But I think you have to acknowledge an extreme change in the projection of this team. And it's not over a small sample size. We're talking 43 games. Now, he hasn't been around, so maybe it feels all fresh and new to him that it's like, what are you talking about? It's just a few bad games. Well, while you were gone, Phil, not a lot of winning happened.
Perhaps because you were gone, Phil.
Like 19 wins in 43 games.
Yep. Whew. This tweet caught my eye from an old friend, Mike in Portland. Used to see a lot of Mike in Portland in the old radio days. You see a lot of his comments. And we had made mention of this on a couple of occasions as well, with regards to, again, what's going to inspire him? You know, where's it going to be all hands on deck playing for each other, greater purpose? What are those sort of individual motivational moments for a team that you can rally around? Well, he points out the comeback games of this season.
Yeah.
We'll start with the worst and matriculate to the better ones. So Dakota Joshua, cancer surgery, beloved teammate.
Yep.
Returns after an absence of a couple months, right? He missed all preseason training camp. They lose 5-2 to the Islanders, one of their worst games of the year.
That one surprised me.
Thatcher Demko comes back, beloved goaltender, teammate, Vezina Trophy candidate. Man, he's been through so much. 4-3 overtime loss versus St. Louis, also on home ice. Philip Roenick the other day. The Roenick return game. He's back. 6-1 in Winnipeg. Pettersson misses a bunch of games. Okay, Petey's back. Let's go. Nope. 2-0 in Carolina. To be fair, they won the Miller return game 4-0 against Florida. They also won the Boeser return game after coming back from the concussion, but that was one that just universally everyone said, by far the second best team on the ice. They beat the Bruins 2-0. Boston got goaltended.
The one they left out was Hughes' return game. Now, he only missed a few, but they get Quinn Hughes back. Mm-hmm. Lose to the Montreal Canadiens.
That's right. In overtime. They got a point. It's kind of the theme of the season.
Right. You need 1 point. The Canucks are your team.
Yeah. Nick Kiprio says keep an eye on the New Jersey Devils when it comes to any kind of JT Miller in-season trade. You may have noticed the New Jersey Devils are having a good year. This coming off a disastrous year where they very much underachieved. But New Jersey's back in the saddle this year. They're 57 points and 46, second in the Metropolitan Division. We know they give the Canucks all sorts of trouble with their fantastic speed. Now, it's a pretty good group of forwards to begin with Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier at center ice. And wow, what a team that would be if you could stack Hughes, Miller, and Hischier as your three centermen, right? Now, look, I know what you're all saying. Luke Hughes, I think, is unattainable in any kind of JT Miller trade. I think the Canucks would certainly have to fatten up their offer. We have said this in the past with young players, but Simon Nemec, second overall pick in the draft a couple of years ago, let it be known to Slovak media that he's not quite at a trade request now, but that could be another David Jiricek situation playing out. A little bit different in terms of this is a more ready-made team looking to win. Columbus, it's like, how can you not make time for that guy in your lineup? But there are some interesting pieces in New Jersey. And so if they believe that JT Miller is something they need as a finishing piece as they try and contend for a Stanley Cup this year, just one to keep in mind as we get closer to March and the deadline. Our buddy Cam Robinson, and of course he had some news earlier in this week about Hughes and Miller. He checked out with some league sources what would a Miller trade look like in season. They told him extremely difficult. One executive even said, quote, "I'd wait if I could." They think pennies on the dollar. That seems a little extreme to me, although, again, it's a narrow market because he's got the no move and he can control this. So if it is only 3 or 4 destinations, it's going to be tough to exact a fair price. But I will say this, Blake. There's been so much criticism of Miller this season, and perhaps on the behavioral side, rightfully so. He's tracking to have 63 points. Mm-hmm. In 72 games. It's equivalent of a 72-point full season. It's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, that's nearly a point per game. That absolutely makes you a second-line center in the NHL. I mean, we all had aspirations that he would be a 100-point guy or a 90-point guy or better than a point per game, and also a better 200-foot two-way player, sure. He's still, around the league, a damn good asset.
Well, again, the salary cap era, you have to look at the term on the contract. So the player himself is not the issue, is the contract. But you look at even a guy...
$8 million is not a problem. Term for some might be
like
too much.
You think about Elias Lindholm last year, acquired by the Canucks on a down year.
Well, you thought that was a down year. Looking at this year.
Yeah, exactly. But it was no risk for the Canucks because he was an expiring contract. They knew it was a rental.
Mm-hmm.
But he still, garnered a first-round pick, a top prospect, Hunter Brstevich.
A B prospect.
Yeah.
An ascending prospect who didn't have quite the pedigree, but yes.
Conditional fourth-round pick as well. That was a pretty decent bounty for what that player was for a floundering Flames team at the time. I don't know. It always seems like when the Canucks are shopping that they're bound to overpay, and it always seems like when they're selling, they're bound to undersell. So I don't know.
Yeah. Great news happening down on the farm, Abbotsford. Archer Sheloves stops 42 of 44 shots as the Baby Canucks sweep the Ontario series, the Ontario Reign, the Kings farm team. Over the last two games, Atu Ratu with a goal and 7 assists, as Dave Hall, our friend, edifies us. There's 8 points in 2 games. Brannstrom was terrific. He should be. Remember Sammy Blais, NHL veteran? He scored a couple of goals over this series. I'm actually a little bit surprised that Blais hasn't got a recall here.
Yeah, a little bit.
Linus Karlsson is now Abbotsford's all-time leading point getter. He had 2 goals over this series. Nils Oman had a goal and a helper, and Arshdeep Bains had a couple of assists.
Brannstrom's got 6 points now in 4 games at the AHL level.
Yeah, Brannstrom should do some damage there. More on that with Patrick Johnston coming up. And then lastly, everybody, it was a week ago Wednesday where we were awfully surprised to see former Canucks president and general manager Mike Gillis here in the lower lobby level of the North Tower banging on our window like we were zoo animals. We called him in. He did a hit with us, and he mentioned he was here doing a podcast. And we're like, oh, he's doing Down to Earth Gafar's conversational series. And episode 4 of Down to Earth has dropped, and it features Mike and his son Spencer Gillis following in his father's footsteps as a player agent, only with professional women's
25 clients
players.
In the WHL.
Good for him.
Mm-hmm.
So here's Mike Gillis in his appearance on Down to Earth, reflecting on his Canucks tenure.
Reflect and be honest about mistakes that you made and circumstances you might have handled differently or better. The job of a general manager in the NHL is extraordinarily difficult, and most people that are fans don't understand or appreciate the complexity of it, the daily grind, the different competing elements that you have to manage from top to bottom. And of course, I reflect back and there are things that I would have done differently. There's also opportunities in technology that weren't around when we were doing things, and they are really profound. I mean, there's incredible advances being made in physiology and physiology tracking and opportunities there that I think are going to change and advance the sport in a way, not only for the sport, but for the general population. Like when you have an elite level athlete that can define physiology parameters in a different way than people are used to, it can lead to a lot of learning, I think, and a lot of opportunities. So I wish that stuff was around when we were doing it. It's there now. I'm definitely going to try and implement it somewhere in the future because I believe in it. But most definitely some things I would do differently for sure.
He's been very good about that since in recent years, about reflecting back and the things that they could have done differently and better. And boy, I'd like to see him get another shot, just because I'd like to see what it looks like from afar as a spectator.
It sounds like he's sniffing around in Europe and might, some of these changes he wants to implement might be at a European level. So
I would like to see him get another shot as an NHL general manager.
Well,
in fact, frankly, I think the work here deserves a second shot as an NHL general manager.
What general managers, as we've seen the Canucks cycle through a couple here, what general manager can you think of that has guided a team to back-to-back President's trophies and then was never to be seen from again? Like, it just doesn't happen.
Well, because Mike was an outsider and a proud outsider his whole hockey career. Again, this is the guy who took on Alan Eagleson. When you take on the hockey establishment, there's a price to be paid, because the establishment doesn't like that. They like retreads. They like their guys who aren't going to rock the boat. Mike made a big stink about schedule and advocating for his franchise. Ooh, don't like that if you're Gary and Bill.
Just listen to what we tell you to do.
Yeah. That Canucks organization revolutionized travel, right? Sleep doctor, sleep science. Oh, gosh. Now we're going to have to spend some money. Now we're going to have to do that if you're another team, right? So I understand it from that point of view. I understand that Gary and Bill do a lot of pushing candidates on owners, and that he's not one of them. Although I do think they liked the fact that Mike and Lawrence were not ex-players and approached it from more a business prism.
It was new eyes. They should have applauded it, but
yeah. Thank you to Thomas. He pointed out, I said the Kings won that game in November 4-2. No, the Canucks won that game in November 4-2. Appreciate that, Thomas. I think I made that error twice, actually. So early Easonos. Time now for our menu, brought to you by Greta, and we've been telling you we're 1 week away here now. The Canucks Army Watch Party on January 23rd at Greta, presented by Fountain Tire, as we watch Vancouver take on Edmonton, a rivalry night. There'll be exciting giveaways, including hockey tickets, signed memorabilia, jerseys to be won. Doors at 5, puck drops at 6. We'll raise some money for One Broken Bike, our charitable partner that evening. A VIP 4-person reservation includes entry into the event, a Greta burger, a beverage, and a game card for that awesome arcade. Tickets, nationgear.ca. Nationgear.ca. Week from today, January 23rd, 5 p.m. at Greta, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. Patrick Johnston is going to join us. Then we'll talk to Rob Williams, Rob the hockey guy. And in our final segment, the Lions' schedule is out with some interesting quirks there. And then reminiscing about one of the great characters in North American sports, the late Bob Uecker, who passed away today at age 90. Let's get to our Bet365 bets of the day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365, secure some price partner. I picked a football game yesterday, so it hasn't happened yet. I'll retain the honor.
Sure.
Okay. Nils Höglander. He's off the 34-game schneid. It's a streaky score.
He is.
How can he not be confident after scoring a goal like that in Winnipeg? Goal, scores, goal. Picking a corner down the wing in flight. He's not going to get 24 this year.
Are you going for back-to-back games, though?
But I think he's going to, progress to the mean?
Advance to the mean?
He's plus 600 as an anytime goal scorer. He's 6-1. So clearly the 3 goals over 43 have been priced in, with a lot of forgetting about the 24 last year. Gimme Höglander. Back-to-back. Crazy as that may be, at plus 600.
These are the 2 lowest scoring games since the 2 lowest scoring teams since the calendar flipped. I'm going to bet against that. There's going to be goals. There's going to be points. Both teams are going to come completely unglued.
Well, and it's a low under, too. It's a low total, right?
How many times are you going to see Williams Patrick at 2 points for plus 400? These are the depths that we have seen now for a star player. Not very present against the Winnipeg Jets. Very good the game before that. Game on, game off. I'll bet game on. Plus 400 for Williams Patrick, 2 points.
Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Patrick Johnston coming up next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. Patrick Johnston covers the Canucks for Postmedia. We haven't had him on since a week ago Monday when we had a pretty good debate about whether this team was underachieving or overachieving. I'm going to start with
what even is
football
English?
At his feet. We asked the poll a few days later, and
and it's binding. It's legally binding?
lo and behold, 93% agreed with me that it was underachieving and in opposition
They didn't
to
get
Patrick.
the exercise. They didn't get the exercise.
Well, I
And
guess,
Blake.
it's just confirmation why it's Sakaris and Price.
So Blake and I are having another debate today. Tread carefully before you find alignment, Johnston.
Oh, God.
I don't think there's any chance Patrick Alvin is going to dismiss Rick Tocchet.
Zero.
Okay. I could see a world where they lowball him on an extension.
Not midseason, by
and
the
he
way.
walks away.
Not
And-
midseason.
End of the year. Well, first of all, it wouldn't be positioned as a firing
Right.
because
Yeah.
I could see
Mutually
them
agree to part ways.
Yes.
exactly
Yeah.
amicably, perhaps even.
I loved working for the Vancouver Canucks.
Said no
Well,
one. Said no one ever.
we've seen how amicable it's been with Trevor, in the intervening years. No, I could see a lowball offer where Rick just says no. I could also see Rick saying, "I'm just fed up. Enough of this. Forget
Yeah,
it.
sure.
I'll go work in TV."
Or I'm a Jack Adams coach and I can go play anywhere. I can go coach.
Or that too.
Yeah.
There's
Or
an
that
opening
too.
over here. I'm
Right?
going there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question: do you think Tocchet will be back next year?
This is a good question. This is a very good question. Oh, man. Look at you.
Not
guys.
will he get fired. That's it. We're being very vague here on purpose because there's a bunch of different avenues I think that this could
Absolute
take.
fastball. Will he be back? I think I've been going on the assumption he will be back despite everything. But that's probably because I'm selfish and I like talking to him.
Right.
Does he like talking to me?
This is like me with Vanny. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So selfishly, I want Vanny back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Media. I do think he'll be back. I think there's enough. There's lots in the organization he appreciates. For all the chaos we might see, I think he values the management group. I think he values ownership. The players may be driving him crazy, but this is the management group that's in it to win it, right? Like they do intend to try to win the Stanley Cup. That's why they're
and that's the huge missing piece that the three of us probably don't have. You might have a slightly firmer grip on it, but still not the firmest grip of what are they promising him that they're going to do. Like they could have grand plans, whether it's midseason or end of season. Of don't worry, Rick. Player X and Y are not going to be here, or player X and player X is coming here. We know he's coming. Like we don't know whatever he's being promised. Right now.
I think they know they misfired last summer, right?
Yeah.
That they're trying to integrate more players than they should have. the loss of Zadorov and Cole, for instance, just as room guys. You don't know that you can do all the research you want on the sort of playing skills and playing abilities of a player and try to figure out what they're like as a persona. But until you put that group together, and you don't know what it's going to look like. And so they had some certainties with them, with the likes of Cole and Zadorov, that they went into the offseason and they didn't bring those guys back. And there were playing reasons to do so. I get it. But, as a group, they misfired. The defense obviously has been nowhere near good enough. I think they would tell you they own that collectively. It comes back to where do they go from here? And the Pettersson Miller, like, how are they going to resolve this situation? Are they going to trade JT Miller? How does that play out in front of him? Because he holds a lot of cards going into the offseason. I still think that there's enough here that he believes in. He's part of the team. He's part of the group. And obviously what it looks like in the offseason may change his mind, but I think as it sits right now, he would look at this group and say, listen, I think we're going in we obviously need to make some, from the outside, we know they need to make some changes. Like I wrote yesterday, and I wrote on the weekend, like there's enough here that you start thinking about how things have been before, that, there's a frustration with the group, with what they're hearing or not hearing, with what maybe worked last year, not working as well this year. How they sort of redirect this ship, however that happens, I think will play a huge factor in what he decides to do. But I think if you're asking me to lean one way or another, I think the trend is towards him staying.
See, here's the thing. I think an Elias Pettersson trade increases the chances that Tocchet will be back. And I think a JT Miller trade decreases the chances that Tocchet will be back.
I think one way or another, the situation needs to be resolved. And it's hard to see. I know I've been leaning towards a no trade. I'm back towards leaning that a trade will resolve this. There's just no way to go about this, other than they have to move one of these guys out. And I do think that they are lean. I think the preference would be Miller. I think at this point, just looking at once again all the reasons we've said before, because not only is Pettersson younger, the ceiling is higher. You need guys to score. He's a better offensive player. He's a better two-way player. Miller is 32, 32.
Well, then there's also the theory: can this really be Quinn's room if Miller is in it? And so by removing JT, do you effectively clear the decks, if you will, for Captain Quinn Hughes, make Elias feel more comfortable within that dressing room, and then go forward that way? Even if it costs you something by way of talent, personnel, even if it's a trade that you got to hold your nose to make, sort of thing, that, long term, some of the parts, are you better off going that road? Because of course, if you trade Pettersson, you've just reinforced that JT can keep on being JT in that room, alongside Captain Quinn Hughes.
JT is going to continue to be JT. Like there's no real mystery there. It's not, could he be someone else? No, this is who he is. The Miller Pettersson thing from a playing standpoint underscores the overall problem with the team. Neither of those guys is getting anything done right now. Like Pettersson is not, they're both been picking up points here and there, but the overall is that they aren't getting to the middle enough. This team had success last year for much of the season because there was luck involved, but they were also just getting to the middle of the ice, the guts of the ice on the other end of and they're not doing that. And then when you have the likes of Bluger and Suter, who are good centers, but not fast centers, there's no one playing fast on this team. And from a playing standpoint, they need to change things up over and above whatever's going on in the room.
Flying the ointment for a Miller trade is his health.
Yeah.
14, 15 minutes a game has got a lot of eyebrows raised. Is it purely performance-based? And if it is a suspected injury, neck, shoulder, what have you, is anybody anxious to trade for the 30-something guy with neck and back issues?
It's a huge problem, a friend was at the game on Tuesday in Winnipeg and said the beginning of the third, and Miller spent a long time hunched over at the bench with the trainer talking to him, whatever that is, right? But that's further to the question of what is going on with him physically, because we're not seeing him physically engaged. You haven't seen him, battling along the boards the way we are used to seeing him. He hasn't, as I said, he's not skating through the middle of the ice the way he might have in the past. If that's because it's a player choosing to dog it, I mean, that's hard to imagine, even with a player who is frustrated. There's no suggestion he wants out, but even if he wanted out, it's hard to imagine a player playing like this by choice. To me, it's just so clearly there's a physical limitation he's dealing with, and whatever it is he had at the beginning of the year, I have no reason to think that's gone away. I mean, we suspect there was a neck thing. He's never said it, doesn't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Should that guy be playing in the Four Nations face-off?
Well, I literally thought about that. I mean, is Team USA going to have regrets on this? Like, they picked the guy because he was a great player. Like, listen, he's been a fantastic player, right? Like, his career as a Canuck, we were talking about at the beginning of the season. This is a guy that is trending towards all-time great Canuck. He had a great season last year. He was picked for the Four Nations Cup on merit. And now he's a disaster.
And never mind that, but if you're the Canucks, both from an asset management standpoint or an on-ice performance standpoint, why would you want him playing in that tournament when the alternate is 2 weeks off?
Yeah.
That sounds a lot more appetizing than the Vancouver Canucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A guy, I mean, maybe that's what comes to a head here, whether he's traded or not, that at a certain point they say, well, he's going to take a break, and that, by the way, that overlaps into the Four Nations tournament.
Yep.
And all of a sudden he has another month off. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's not a good situation one way or another. It's and it's not the way this team was designed to be, obviously. They designed this team the way it looks, and it hasn't worked, and there's a bunch of reasons why, and some of that is because of injury. Mm-hmm. And some of that's because of the room, and some of that is bad luck, and some of that is, it's just, there's a snowball here, some of which they could have controlled, and the biggest thing they couldn't control is the way they assembled this roster, and this roster has not worked.
Yeah, and frankly, I think you make the same case for Demko, unless you want him working. Who knows? We'll see.
I think
between now and go ahead.
I think you need I mean, they've got to play Demko. Like the
Mm-hmm.
I got the dilemma that they were facing in Winnipeg. You've got a guy who's coming off a shutout. They didn't play him the last time he came off a shutout. Does he earn the next start? Well, yeah. I mean, in the end, the team didn't play very well in front of Lankinen. They didn't lose because Lankinen wasn't great. I don't think Demko in the net necessarily makes a difference.
Yeah,
but
honestly,
the big picture, I was going to say in the big picture, there's no reason not to be going back and forth between these guys at the very minimum right now, because Demko is good. If Demko is going to be your guy going forward, you've got to see him get back to where he is. And he's
right.
not. I mean, he's been okay, but he has not been spectacular.
And 2 wins and 8. 2 wins and 8. So, yeah, no, you're quite right. And frankly, I thought the decision was very understandable for those of us on this side of the ledger. In hindsight, I think it was the wrong call because Tocchet had said, I can't overwork him. That's when his level slipped. We saw a couple of examples of that earlier this season. When they couldn't play Sheloff, they had to keep going back to Lankinen, and suddenly he got past a point of no return in terms of his effectiveness. So I think, I'm not sure Demko was the right call, but Lankinen was clearly the wrong call. Do you believe they have to resolve the Miller Pettersson thing in season? And if it's yes, do you think this team deserves? Okay. Do you think the list of teams that JT would accept a trade to changes in the offseason from where it would be by the March trade deadline?
I guess why would that change?
Exactly.
That's
my point. So my point that's my point is that if his list of teams does not change between now and the offseason, you're still dealing with, let's say, 3 or 4 teams, then principally, is the return going to change much? Like, do the Pittsburgh Penguins or Columbus Blue Jackets offer more in the summer? And if you're facing this reality in your Alvin and you go, okay, well, it's not going to be a trade that I'm absolutely proud of, that I'm going to lead my resume or cover letter with when I'm done managing in Vancouver. But let's just go ahead and bite the bullet and at least give this team a chance to move forward and see if something is possible in the playoffs, as opposed to waiting to the summer and thinking that somehow this team is going to turn it around.
Well, the calculus is this then, guys, does this team have a better chance of catching lightning in a bottle with a miraculous resurgence of Pettersson and Miller together? Yeah. Or do they stand a better chance of addition by subtraction with a trade for JT Miller? That's the calculus.
And I'm door number 2 because, Patrick, we were wondering this yesterday. Can you name a game this year where the Canucks came out of it and were like, boy, what a night for Miller, what a night for Pettersson? Huh?
At the same time? Nope, can't remember that. I may have happened, but it's certainly
you're 43, 44 games in. Like, how long are you going to fucking wait on one of those? And when you see one, do you think, oh, that's it? Here they go. Yeah. They're great.
Yeah. I mean,
no, you're going to have to see a number of those in short order.
The window of possibility
to be honest with yourself and make that call that, we're back, baby. Here comes the resurgence.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, the window for that even being a possibility is very narrow. I mean, everyone focuses on how many points he put up while Miller was out of the lineup, but Pettersson was playing pretty well before Miller left the lineup, but it had only been, 10 games. So, the two of them dominating, think about the power play. The power play is not performed well. Miller is now, was pulled off the power play tonight because he's not contributing to the power play. There's absolutely, I think Blake said it, it's addition by subtraction. It's just, it's not working as it is. They've reached ahead. Nothing lasts forever, right? I don't know if any of us expected it would go quite this way, but you knew at some point something was going to change in terms of performance. And then you'd have to think about it. The Canucks had made the bet that essentially this, the Hughes window was always the window, and they made a bet that this season would be a carry forward from last season, and even going into last season, that picking Miller over Horvat was the way forward. And they were proven right last year. The team played great, and there were lots of those nights. Pettersson obviously had the second half fall off, but before the All-Star break, the Canucks looked like they were going to have 2, possibly 300-point players. Like we mustn't forget that. Like Pettersson was scoring, Miller obviously was scoring, Quinn Hughes obviously was scoring. Quinn Hughes was scoring at an astounding rate. This team thought they were going somewhere, and they thought they were only going to be building further off that, and that has not been the case this year. And obviously you don't want to forget where you were and why you were there, but you look at where things are at now and the way things are feeling. And the way things are just not working. That's why, like I said, I looked back at that Quinn Hughes or the Pat Quinn story from '91 and just said, listen, that team was underwhelming to start with. Quinn recognized he needed to switch things up, and he got aggressive. That's a lot harder now, obviously, because of the salary cap. With the players we're talking about. This is JT Miller, not Dan Quinn. It is a change. They would benefit, I think, from a change. Whether they can make that happen in an effective manner, we will see. But I think
cursory glance, the only multi-point game for both of them that I can find, just a quick glance.
I just did the same exercise, Blake.
Calgary, November 12th.
November 12th is the one time where they both had multi-point games.
5 days before Miller takes his break, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Lastly, your colleagues at Postmedia, Dan Fumano has done some terrific reporting on this play. Well, not just Dan. There are other colleagues.
Lee Young was working with him on the latest one,
Right. On the Plaza of Nations site, which there was news this week. It sold.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like the dream's dead there. Right? There will never be a Canucks practice facility on the Plaza.
Or is it alive because they've got somebody new to negotiate with to be a part of that? I don't know. How do you see it?
I mean, obviously it was an option there for a long time, and then suddenly it wasn't, right before the pandemic. there was going to be a rink. I mean, the plans as they currently exist, there's still a community center ice rink planned to be in that development. The question is, as Dan highlights in his reporting, is will the new owners carry forward with the plans as they exist, or will they do something differently? Especially with now that we're seeing the viaducts are coming down. I mean, the actual plan. I mean, the plan always was that the viaducts were going to come down, but now it seems like there's real momentum towards that happening because of the Concord Pacific stuff around the corner. Which, by the way, I mean, there's only some notional drawings of what they want to do there, but as it stands, there's no suggestion that they might put a rink in there instead. I mean, years ago, at the very beginning of this whole discussion with the Aquilinis, there was an idea of kicking tires on could we build a rink in Northeast Falls Creek. And it's, you know, I mean, look where we are. Where nothing's happened there. Nothing's happened in the Plaza Nations. Yeah, that dream was dead. I think there's still a sort of a dream of UBC, but we'll see how that happens. It's a story that. Well, I will go back to the anecdote that was once told to me that when they were recruiting Chris Tanev, they told him part of the reason why he should come play for the Vancouver Canucks was that they were about to build an exciting new practice facility.
Exciting.
This is Chris Tanev out of RPI all those years ago, or
Really?
this is Chris Tanev as NHL free agent?
Yes, this was part of the recruitment in 2010. And here we are 15 years later. So Chris Tanev's career, you know, it's still going, but we know it's going to end very soon. It will have come and gone.
Don't worry. We'll have a practice facility and a couple of Tanevs. And you two continue to tell me that SFU is a non-starter because too damn far, right?
No,
because we saw SFU made news with their report, football is not coming back. Men's hockey is not getting elevated. And the coach there still seems to think, you know, we could be something in NCAA Division I hockey. And, you know, Francesco's an SFU alum. So, but you're telling me it's too damn far. They're too precious to drive to Burnaby Mountain.
Correct.
For a practice facility.
Correct.
If there were some sort of residential development opportunity that tied in with that, as there was going to be across the street from Rogers Arena.
Right.
One final thing before you go. PJ, have you caught the last couple of games of Erik Brannstrom as an Abbotsford Canuck?
Your guy.
But
well,
he looks like
that's the Blake. There is no there. That is the level. He is a quad A player.
They gave up 44 shots last night, so you know, I mean, it's
there. You go.
Is a
counterpoint. Touche.
It's a strange story. I don't quite listen. He was not a preferred choice. Fine. He's a flawed defender. Fine. It just I in the end, Blake. I mean, when we first discussed this, he had been playing very badly, but you're telling me that he is of no use, and I mean, okay,
yeah.
No. Minus truck transportation, there were certainly games where he would have helped that.
Yes, and I think
who knows what he would have caused on the other side of the puck. I was with Blake on the puck transportation, but let's not sit here citing AHL point totals as a reason why.
Not point totals. Go look at what he looks like. The guy is a wizard out there at the AHL level.
Again, against guys who are not of NHL caliber, let's not go citing that and saying, yes, that means he absolutely belongs as an every night top six Vancouver Canucks.
It is a passion of this market, and I think it's probably true of many markets.
It's a passion of Blake Price.
To love the underdog, to love the guy that you just want to succeed because you in them you see a little bit of yourself as maybe. Just maybe there's a chance for me.
This goes back. Are you fucking kidding me? He has never once daydreamed about maybe that could be me.
This goes back to Goldobin.
You don't know, Blake.
This goes back to
what's his face? The Finnish winger.
No, because I didn't know him as well. His game. No, Teuvo Teravainen.
No, not Teravainen. That waiver claim guy that you and Tomlinson debated for 12 minutes, 13
My
minutes.
debate is about the deification of the guys that are in the spots that the other guys can't beat out. Like, stop it with this deification of the trees on the Canucks defense. Like, couldn't possibly take their defending out of the lineup. Yeah, you sure as hell could. Stop it. It's not the deification of Brannstrom. It's of the other guys. Like, are you...
the point is
that part I agree.
Fundamentally, it's not Erik Brannstrom, and it's not that they should do better than the trees in general.
Right.
Erik Brannstrom doesn't solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is unrest in the forest. There is trouble with the trees, as a great Canadian poet once wrote. I'm glad that got spicy at the end for two reasons. Number one, it's PJ. We have a theme to uphold with him here. But secondly, I sat there for the first 18 minutes going, look at how white we are. Like, you can tell it's the middle of January. There's just like no pigmentation. We haven't seen the sun in weeks, and we got a little.
It is literally the middle of the day, and it looks 7 p.m. outside.
Yeah, it really does.
The girls, we stepped outside to walk to school this morning, and Molly goes, "Why is it so dark?"
Dark.
I mean, it's been sunny the last couple of mornings, but like it had been raining. It's just dark. Yeah, guys, I was standing there as post puck nuts. We another terrible performance, sadly, for the puck nuts. But I was standing there, I looked at my arm, and I could not believe how white. It was just in contrast to how
Your alabaster skin.
Exactly. Yeah, it was so great seeing the sun for the last couple of days. We need more of that.
All right.
Good. You brighten our days. Thank you, Paige. Till next week.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
So, Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. Rob Williams is the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports vertical. Rob, the hockey guy on Twitter. And he joins us from the newsroom. How are you?
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Good.
Start you with the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question, because, if I'm not mistaken, Blake, it wasn't that long ago. Rob was telling us, look, Tocchet still holds the market in the palm of his hand, right? Things have turned for the coach, Rob. What do you think? Do you think he'll be back next year?
I mean, I think he should be. Absolutely. I think he will. I think he's got the confidence of management, and quite frankly, like, is this group going to get another coach? Like, they were a tire fire under Travis Green. They were a tire fire under Bruce Boudreau. But now they can't play for Tocchet either. Like I see that the tide's turned a little bit on social media. Like, I don't know if it's a majority of fans. I doubt it, but there's definitely, a loud portion of the fan base that's getting increasingly louder, and they're pointing the finger at Rick Tocchet and saying that his system is part to blame for why the Canucks have struggled this season. And I don't know. I just don't buy it. Like, I just don't see blaming the coach again, as a solution to this, and going with yet another coach heading into next season.
What about him? Is he done here?
I know. I've heard what people have said, like, okay, he just go work for TNT or whatnot. But I don't know. Has it got so bad? Has it got so hard that he say after 2 years, like, no, that's it. I'm getting out of this place. I think Rick Tocchet's a competitor. I think he had that fire last season and saw the energy of the fan base at Rogers Arena for playoff games. 2 goals away from making it to the conference final. To me, this is I think for a guy like Rick Tocchet, he's not going to pull the chute right now. He's going to meet pressure with pressure and stick around.
So his system was not a problem last year when they were winning. They're not winning as much this year, and you have more and more people who are upset with the style of Vancouver Canucks play. We got a drop in from Gillis last week here, and you will remember, Rob, that Gillis set out to play an offensive, entertaining style of hockey. It's a commercial enterprise. Our job is to entertain these people who are paying significant ticket prices to be in the building. And sure enough, Alain Vigneault followed in tow, and they produced some very exciting teams. Now, I checked attendance this week, and the Canucks are still top 5. And you can quibble with me and explain to me, edify me that, okay, it's not quite all that it seems in terms of what their percentage of tickets sold is this year. But do you think this market needs a more entertaining style, or is it just about winning? If they were just to start winning at the rate they were winning at last year, nobody would have an issue with the style of play. Nobody would have an issue with devoting their time or spending their money on Canucks hockey.
I mean, ideally, you'd like to have both, but if you have to pick one or the other, it's wins all day. I think this market is astute enough to know, if they're seeing a fun or a boring product on the ice, but wins matters. Winning is fun. and I think that above all will take precedence. So it's one of those things. If you're going to play a lock it down style and not generate too many shots on goal, as they did, as you recall in the Nashville series, having a hell of a time to put pucks on net. Hey, they won the games. People didn't have too much of a problem with it at that time, and that was to an extreme. I just don't see this as the system. I think you can quibble with parts of the system. I don't think they have the defense core to be, doing too much that's dazzling on the ice right now. But I don't think that this is something is their forecheck so demanding, so much more demanding than other good teams in the league? Is this something that you just can't expect Canucks forwards to carry out on a game in, game out basis? I don't buy that. The biggest part for me is we've seen this team play fun, exciting hockey under this system. So why can't they do it again?
Under this guy, but I think I'll quibble with you under this system because I think he changed the system. He ratcheted up the system midway last year. So under this guy, yes. But this isn't what they were playing, 14 months ago, right? He had yet to really instill what he wanted out of them.
Yeah, I think you're right, Rob, though, with regards to if you have to pick one or the other. I could see a world, we know what Vancouver is like, kind of a fickle market, where if you get so accustomed to winning and success that people would quibble more and more about the style of play. But I think coming off a decade of despair, people were happy with winning last year. Their attendance is slightly down this year, 0.3% as of last week, but it still remains very strong.
It's below the average of a women's hockey game.
The rest.
Well, it's also the fact that they jacked the prices up like nobody else after last season.
We've talked about this.
Maybe there's a bit of karma at play in this season too, guys. We can't discount that.
Fair.
We've talked about this cocktail of reasons why they are, and there's multiple reasons why they are where they are. But from a fan base perspective, what do you think people are most frustrated about? Who are they most frustrated at, if you will? And it could be the players for their lack of performance, i.e. Miller and Pettersson. It could be management for their, for the blue line that they thought was good enough. Where do you think they're directing their ire if you really took a poll?
I think the person, nobody's getting it more, I think, than Elias Pettersson. And to be quite frank, for good reason. It's been a year of this where he just has not looked right.
Noah did a deep dive on this, didn't he? Noah Strang.
He did, yeah. And he hasn't been himself for, close to a calendar year now. And I think people are not happy with Miller, but I think there's more maybe uncertainty given the leave, given he looks like he's playing, it doesn't look like he's playing at 100% health to me at the moment. So I think that he maybe gets a little bit more of a pass, but I think if you talk to kind of Joe average Canucks fan on the street, they'd be looking at Elias Pettersson. And to be quite frank, we're talking about, can you score in this system and can you play exciting style in this system? We're more than halfway through the season. Connor Garland, who's supposed to be on the third line, is outscoring Pettersson, Miller, and Boeser this year. And that's great for Connor Garland, but that's also an indictment on the Canucks' 3 top offensive forwards that they're trailing behind. And if you look at them on the ice, like, who's trying harder than Garland to win right now, and not just right now, but all season. So to me, Pettersson's the guy, and he's making the big paycheck right now. He is the most talented forward. Where is the production? Like what is bothering him at this point? Like, is it can't be the tendonitis at this point, right? Like, we're into a year of this, and still waiting. Like, he showed the flash in Toronto, and he was pretty unnoticeable in Winnipeg. So you can't have that, and I think that's part of the messaging we're hearing from Tocchet about, like, it's hard to, like, as he said after last game, it's hard to do all these things game in, game out, and you can't just do it once in a while. I wonder if part of that's directed at his highest paid player.
Yeah, I think it absolutely is.
Remember last
directed.
year, early January, they went on that East Coast trip. Pettersson was spectacular, scored the incredible goal at MSG, came back, and that's when the bottom dropped out. Yep. Per Noah, Jan 15 of last year to Jan 15 of this year, tied for 39th among NHL centers in points, tied for 48th among NHL centers in goals.
JPAC commented he was actually a star of the month for January. Like, he did enough through the rest of January, but it was come February where, yes, absolutely, the bottom fell out. Interesting comments from Nick Kyprios that he thinks that Brock Boeser, the Canucks cannot afford to keep Brock Boeser, basically afford to keep their own rental at the deadline. He anticipates a Boeser move. We've heard Darren Dreger tell us that he thinks there's a big decision one way or the other coming with Boeser by the trade deadline. What's your prescription here, Rob? What do you think? Do you think Boeser will be a Canuck?
I mean, if you look at the evidence right now, there's not much evidence that they really want to keep him. I mean, I thought it was very interesting over the summer. Management took they came right out and said, we're going to take effectively said they're going to take a wait and see approach. They wanted to see, I guess, he had the blood clotting issue in the playoffs. So maybe they wanted to see how he bounced back from that. He's been, other than the head injury, I mean, he's, played in a lot of games this season, performed, I don't know, reasonably well, not amazing, right? But like on pace for 30 goals. He's not like 20 goals. He's not 40 goals like he was a year ago. So I don't think Boeser would expect to get paid as a 40 goal guy, given he's only done it once in his career. To me, this would be the perfect recipe for, talking extension. And hey, maybe his expectations are totally unreasonable and he's trying to hit a grand slam and prices himself out of what the Canucks are prepared to do. But, we're not hearing very much from the insiders right now on Boeser and the Canucks and extension talks. So, and we didn't hear a lot about it in the summer. So like, when are they going to talk, or are they just not really interested? Or are they waiting for that pressure point of the trade deadline? It's less than 2 months to go to the deadline now. And I think the Canucks need to decide. I mean, they got a big decision ahead of the deadline. And I think a lot is going to depend on how this team performs. Like, given what we've seen so far, like, do you think this team can turn around and go on a long playoff run? I mean, maybe, but I'd like to see a little bit more from this group before you start, really doubling down,
Yes.
In the playoffs. So if that's not going to happen, are you just going to hold on to Boeser and let him walk for nothing? Or do you try to do something to get some assets back before the deadline? It's going to be an intriguing decision because he's a very popular player in Vancouver.
Yeah. If you don't believe in this team this year, or this core group, core being a little bigger than just the big four, then the prudent move is to move on Boeser. And the question there is, do you think he could fetch you the top 4 defenseman? I think he probably could.
But what team that wants to acquire him has surplus top 4 defensemen heading into the playoffs? Like I don't see that equation. You know, a future top 4 defenseman, yeah, maybe you can get that. But a current one, which is what they need, oof, I don't know.
I mean, maybe you try to recreate the Bo Horvat trade, right? Where you trade Horvat, get a first-round pick,
get assets and flip.
Get the assets that you need to spend on a top 4 defenseman and do it that way. You know, that I think that's an option. But again, it really depends on the pressure point of how badly do they need to make the playoffs. You know, when they traded Horvat, they were, you know, in a different position in terms of the standings. You know, are you in a position now where it would be tough for them to just say we're trading Boeser for a, you know, prospect or first-round pick, and then go into the playoffs short their best goal scorer, and then try to do it in the offseason. It might be the smart move. It might be the best move long-term, but that'd be a tough move to make, you know, when you're staring at a playoff spot that's right there for the taking.
Unless you don't believe in this team. And we'll see. We'll see what judgment the management group casts on this group. Needless to say, if they're keeping Boeser and they're looking for that top 4 defenseman, they still have some belief. If they're willing to move Boeser for futures, it's pretty clear it's the other way around. Great stuff, Rob. Thanks for joining us. Great to hear your voice again. See you, and we'll catch up next Thursday.
Thank you very much.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center, where if you've got your tickets to the big game, why not make it a full experience? Stay downtown here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for the Harrison Price rate. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. You can text us 778-402-9680. Email live at scarsonprice.com. All of it to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips.
It's going to be great.
Was that Great Clips yesterday?
It's the best you can do, huh?
Still have hair.
Wow. Top rope. Okay.
No. That wasn't mentioned.
Okay.
That wasn't directed at you at all.
It's all right.
Maybe we're just a little overly sensitive in that area. In, out, quick, easy,
ready,
and affordable.
Text. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. BC Lions' schedule is out. And this is the long-awaited CFL schedule.
Yeah, so they are going to play this season.
They're going to play this season,
okay.
Believe it or not, Blake. Circle your calendars, everybody. It has become an event in the city of Vancouver. The Lions' home opener, which this year is also the season opener, Saturday, June 7th, versus the Edmonton Elks, with the famous kickoff concert preceding the game. We will now, of course, endeavor to figure out who that concert will be. Everybody sworn to not NDAs. And at some point in May, Amar Doman will let us in. But the bar is pretty high, right? One Republic, LL Cool J, 50 Cent.
I wonder if they go back to hip-hop or do they do something more rocky this time?
Mm-hmm.
See.
So they finished that game against Edmonton, and then they have a home-and-home with Winnipeg. And maybe this is less pronounced this year because Winnipeg is no longer the Mountain. The Lions bowed out against Saskatchewan in the semi last year. Then that's it for games against the Bombers. They are done with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on June 21st. Which, from a competitive point of view, only having to play them twice and not 3 times is probably a good thing. Quirk of the schedule, though. Then after that home-and-home with Winnipeg, and the home game is aforementioned June 21st, 3 straight on the road. They're in Saskatchewan, they're in Montreal, they're in Edmonton. Season could very well be, I want to say defined, but I think it will take shape. If they can get 2 out of 3 road wins there, that's very good. I think they'll be quite happy. 1 out of 3, and you're going to may have to chase it a little bit. Saturday, Sunday home games in the summer at 4 p.m. Sure, that was noted and applauded by all the Lions fans on the island and in the interior, except for the home opener. The home opener is a 7 p.m. start.
They don't need as much help there, and it's such a destination that if you are on the island, that's the one where you probably want to come in early and stay the night anyhow because of the concert and everything. So,
bye weeks on the August long and Labor Day weekend. As we know, the Lions, without the natural geographic rival in a 9-team league, often have Labor Day weekend off. There is no Touchdown Pacific game this year. In fact, there's no touchdown game, period. Farhan had that last week. They have that home and home against Winnipeg. They also have back-to-back a home and home with Hamilton, albeit separated by a bye. And all 4 East teams play out here this year, and they play in all 4 East markets. The league had gone away from that scheduling matrix, I guess, to save cost and travel, but it just seemed inappropriate in a 9-team league that you wouldn't see every other team in your building and visit every other city. Can I throw something in your
you may.
quiver, and you tell me what you think? How would you feel about a Thanksgiving Monday game at BC Place?
Who?
Well, it doesn't really matter.
Thanksgiving Monday is not a sacred territory for
it's
me.
Actually I say the August long and Labor Day. They're also off Thanksgiving weekend as well. That's the other bye this year. So they miss all 3 long weekends.
Yeah.
But the league does put games on Thanksgiving Monday. Typically, it's back east. Is that not something to try out here?
Yeah.
Do you think there'd be turnout for like a 1 p.m. or a 4 p.m. Thanksgiving Monday matinee?
I can
here
foresee
at BC
that.
Place?
Yeah, I could foresee that. It's that Thanksgiving Monday is a weird day. Like we always have had our Thanksgiving dinner on the Sunday night. But so Sundays or the Monday is pretty wide open, generally speaking, for us. So yeah,
we used to work it a lot in our radio days, and would have the CFL games on because nothing else.
Yeah,
it's not like the National Hockey League has moved in on Canadian Thanksgiving. It's
usually
very
pre-season.
early in the season.
Yeah.
If that, I would love to see. Memo to Dwayne Vanneau, Amar Doman, and the BC Lions.
Advocate.
Try a Thanksgiving Monday matinee one year. Let's see what happens.
But
I'm curious.
Overall, I don't mind the theory that in beautiful British Columbia, avoid long weekends.
Avoid long
people
weekends.
go do shit.
Yep.
I don't mind that theory.
Idea.
You know?
I mean, if you're going to do Touchdown Pacific on the island, a big event like that, then maybe there's some merit to it. But yeah, I agree. Glass City is reporting that Vancouver Whitecaps FC are closing in on signing 20-year-old Toluca, that's a Mexican side, forward Anderson Duarte. He's a Uruguayan and was the leading goal scorer at the U20 World Cup in 2023. Glass City says it's likely to be a loan with an option to buy. You're bullish on this.
Tom Bogert has verified it as well.
Okay.
It's from even Glass City's report is from Marquez, a scouting account based in South America. I mean, I'm just doing internet research at this point. I do remember Uruguay winning that U20 World Cup, and he's the leading goal scorer on that team. I mean, there's some quality there.
It's a hell of a football-playing nation.
He played for a Uruguayan Primera Division team named Defensor Sporting, which has a very good reputation for churning out talent. He had 10 goals in 39 appearances there over the last couple of seasons. Just had a couple of months at Toluca this past fall. That's it. So he's only got 7 appearances there, I believe. But and clearly they feel like he just needs a little bit more seasoning before they want to insert him into their lineup, and Whitecaps are more than willing to provide that seasoning. So.
Yeah, you like the profile here. Young, position striker, from a heck of a
apparently more of a winger than striker. Yeah.
Forward.
So you wouldn't necessarily be usurping White or putting. You could in instances. Think of Fafa Picault, not so much the speed part, but that utilization. Either on the wing or in a pinch, you could put him as a striker.
And sad news from the world of baseball today. Albeit sad is just about the furthest emotion I can think of.
And he wouldn't want us to be sad,
Mr.
honestly.
Baseball, Bob Uecker, who passes away at age 90, the Baseball Hall of Famer, began calling Milwaukee Brewers games in 1971, was more than 50 years behind that microphone, more limited duties over the last decade. He was a ball player, famously. Hit 200 over 6 career seasons with Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and St. Louis before beginning his broadcasting and acting career. Blakey had 14 career home runs, 3 of them off Hall of Famers, Fergie Jenkins, the Canadian, Gaylord Perry, and Sandy Koufax. One of his stock lines was he was worried that home run would keep Sandy out of the Hall of Fame. He, of course, also gained fame as Harry Doyle, the play-by-play man for the Cleveland then Indians in the movie Major League. The famous call, just a bit outside. I mean, you still hear it today on baseball broadcasts, right? He also played the dad in the television sitcom Mr. Belvedere.
When he appeared very old at that point, and that was 1984.
Mike Rogerson actually said he didn't realize Uecker was a ball player or even a broadcaster at one point.
Yeah.
He just liked him on Mr. Belvedere.
He was my favorite actor.
A late-night talk show regular with more than 100 appearances on Johnny Carson's show. It's where he earned the nickname Mr. Baseball, where he would trot out some of the bits that Brewers fans would become accustomed to. For example, I signed with the Atlanta Braves for $3,000. Upset my father very much because he didn't have that kind of money to pay the Braves. This was a genius storyteller and comedian. And that's what made him great. Because when the game got out of hand, and it often did for the Milwaukee Brewers, that's when the broadcast got better. That's when the good folks of Wisconsin would get to their radios because they knew it was story time with Bob. And it's not like the subject matter was always funny in and of itself. But Blake, as you were saying to me, just professional delivery.
You had to be in on it, though. You had to know because there's so much deadpan. There was so much sarcasm.
Oh, my goodness.
Like if you were just... If you didn't know who Bob Uecker was and you were visiting Wisconsin for some reason,
the broadcast must have sounded like what is this?
Yeah, like it'd be like,
yeah. I thought I was getting a baseball game.
But also just like you'd be unclear what the point was. But when you realize it's dripping with sarcasm and deadpan, it is absolutely hysterical and will continue to be as I think we've all gone down the rabbit hole today of looking at old stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Just incredible.
The delivery, the build-up, knowing you were getting to that self-deprecating punchline, the pacing, the cadence, the pauses, and then the face.
Yeah.
Never a smirk, never a laugh, just the stone-faced delivery of it all. He routinely held audiences in the palm of his hand. Go watch his induction speech for the Ford C. Frick Award, the Hall of Fame for baseball broadcasters. He is surrounded by the game's royalty, including some very serious men, and they are wiping away tears from their eyes as he delivers an 18-minute missive that was just tip to tail hilarious. Here's the other thing I learned about him today. He never once had a contract with the Brewers. He did handshake deals with first Bud Selig, who would go on to be baseball's commissioner, and then Atanasio, the newer Brewers owner. He was so popular with players in the clubhouse, and an unabashed fan, right? In fact, he brought that to the game, Blake. Sure, there were broadcasters before him who were rah-rah for the home team, but through all the losing in Milwaukee, Bob was there cheering them on each and every game.
I think because he was worse than them. So he would often be so self-deprecating that no matter how bad the Brewers got, they were still better than him.
He was so popular in that clubhouse that when the Brewers went on a postseason run in 2018, the players voted him a full postseason share, $123,000, and Euchre immediately donated it to charity.
Well, we said ourselves, like, in today's modern world, if there was a shooting star analyst in a small market like Milwaukee, he would then soon be the shooting star analyst for the Dodgers, Yankees, or Mets.
And he did do network television, ABC, Monday Night Baseball, NBC with Bob Costas. But he was a born and raised Milwaukee guy. That's the only place he ever wanted to be. And so, no, he didn't matriculate to any of the bigger clubs, the richer clubs. And the other thing, you will wait a long, long, long time before a Milwaukee Brewer radio announcer becomes this big in the American popular culture.
Yes.
Poll question results from Wednesday. We asked you, how do you feel about the Canucks season? Anger, disappointment, other. Blake, the people said?
Disappointment.
Indeed. Percentage?
70.
80. David, didn't think I'd answer this way, but I'm kind of angry, to be honest. Decades of turmoil later, they finally have a top flight pieces at every position. Show they could do it last year, but it's not working because they can't get along. Are you fucking kidding me? Sam, I feel nothing, to be honest. I have completely checked out on this team. After a decade of darkness, we get one season of hope, and then it's back to this bullshit again. Multimillionaires having workplace drama like children. No one named Hughes or Lankinen not showing up. Embarrassing. We saw lots of confused in the comments. And then there's Mal. We're not mad. Just
disappointed. Yeah.
Always hurts. Confident the Canucks will make the playoffs? Yes or no? What did the people say?
People said no.
Indeed. Percentage?
64.
72.
Woo!
Calling and planning. Nope. More and more it appears that the 23-24 season was the outlier. This is more like the previous decade with no plan on the ice. Well, they have a plan. It's a backfiring plan. And then Cody, yes, because most of the teams around us are mid or have their own flaws too. And that is, yes, no doubt about that. Errors and omissions from yesterday's program. Blake was mistaken on the Denny Green. We are who they thought. Skridler got on me for saying, are you confident they'll make the playoffs? I said, tepid, yes. Well, can you be tepid and confident? And then you were right. The Caps flew to Spain yesterday. I thought it was today. Anything to self-report?
No.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Follow on social. That's Twitter, X Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. We're live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays, and of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.